Hi, it's Andrea, and welcome back to Tuesday. I'm here to offer you my top 10 steampunks. Wait, what is steampunk? Inspired by Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, steampunk is a subgenre of science fiction, usually set in the Victorian era in which there is advanced steam-powered and clockwork technology. I still don't get it. Steampunk has kind of a backwards and forwards feel, set in a historical era, but with technology that is far advanced beyond that era. Think the Wild Wild West, where there's giant steam-powered mechanical spiders tromping through the western hillsides. Steampunk is actually becoming really popular right now. It's involved in fashion, in architecture, in movies and books, in music. It's totally becoming a part of a whole bunch of different aspects of culture. Well, I kind of knew about steampunk before 2009. It was really only in the past year that I started to get heavily interested in the genre. I was fascinated by the visual aesthetic and the fashions and the costumes, by the brass and cog mechanical devices that were came up with, as well as the storylines. So without further ado, I'm going to give you my top 10 steampunk stories. 5 books and 5 movies that are my favorites so far. The Difference Engine by William Gibson and Bruce Sterling. The Difference Engine is considered kind of the definitive work of steampunk. It's one of the first books that established the steampunk genre in literature. The storyline centers around the Babbage engine, which was invented by Charles Babbage. It's a computing device based off of steam power and gears and cogs and clockwork that would have been a computer 100 years before computers were actually invented. So the storyline brings in all this sort of invasion of privacy and keeping of information and the value of information that computers have today. It's kind of a darker storyline with fascinating characters and an interesting sense of not so much adventure but intrigue throughout the book. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, written by Alan Moore and illustrated by Kevin O'Neill. Forget what you know about the craptastic movie version of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because the book is a different creature entirely. The graphic novel is so much more dangerous and dark and interesting and inventive and unique than anything the movie was. It's really a great read, and I suggest you check it out as much for the artwork that's involved as for the storyline. Mainspring by Jay Lake. In Mainspring, Jay Lake has taken steampunk to a whole nother level. Not only are there mechanical and clockwork and steam-powered devices created by man, but the entire Earth is a mechanical device run on a brass track through the universe, and it is the main character's task to find his way to the center of the Earth and rewind or restart the mainspring of the Earth before everything goes to ruin and is destroyed. I have to say that it definitely has some of the weirdest concepts of any of the books on this list, but I found that as I kept reading it, I enjoyed it more and more the weirder it got. Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld. Leviathan is set in an alternate history in which England, France, and Russia are Darwinists and have created genetically engineered creatures to suit their every purpose. Meanwhile, Germany and Austria-Hungary are called clankers because they have developed machines of war that involved mechanical devices of great complexity and strength. Not only does it have a fabulous cover, but this book was a lot of fun to read. It's a young adult book. It was illustrated beautifully throughout, and it has a slightly lighter tone despite the oncoming war and the political intrigue that's throughout the book. But it's just, in general, a lot of fun as you see these two very different characters interact with the world around them. Bone Shaker by Sherry Priest. In an alternate 1800s, a mad inventor invents a machine meant to dig for gold. However, the machine runs amok, burrowing through the city of Seattle, creating all kinds of chaos and letting loose a gas that creates the blight. Blight causes people to become extremely ill, eventually die, and then be resurrected as zombies. Zombies! Years later, Zeke Wilkes' Blue Sun goes back into the quarantine section of Seattle in the hopes of rewriting history, forcing his mother to come in after him as a rescue attempt. I mentioned Bone Shaker in my last video because Bone Shaker is not only my favorite steampunk book, but it's also just about my favorite book of all time. It combines zombies and steampunk, and it is just a fast-paced, fun read full of the most vivid descriptions. It is absolutely fabulous, and I suggest you, if you pick up any of these books, you pick up that one. Seriously. Right now. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. The Baron is kind of an old, bloated, egotistical, bombastic old man who flirts with the ladies and somehow gets their attention, and he tells these fabulous stories. Meanwhile, there's a city in the middle of a war, and he promises to go out and get heroes who will come back and defeat the Turks who are invading the city. Like a lot of steampunk, it's totally outlandish, but the adventures are also a lot of fun, and it's absolutely one of my top movies. I love it. The Last Exile. The Last Exile is an anime series centering around a 15-year-old airship pilot named Klaus and his navigator Lavi. There's airship pirates, and there's wars, and there's battles. It's a very fascinating world with very well developed characters and beautiful animation. The City of Lost Children. Crank is a man who cannot dream. Therefore, he goes out into the world, kidnaps children, and steals their dreams. A man, Ron Perlman, shows up in the City of Lost Children looking for his younger brother, and he goes about helping the children defeat Crank and his henchmen. The City of Lost Children is another one of those odd movies. It's a French film, and it's very surreal in its filmmaking, but I highly recommend it. The Prestige. Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale play illusionists, or magicians if you want to call them that, who are competing to be the best there is. There's a lot of underhandedness between the two groups. Hugh Jackman's character, in trying to be the best and creating the best illusion there is, runs into Nikola Tesla, played by the fantastic David Bowie, who gives him a machine that does a very interesting thing. It's a very cool film, but I have to tell you, David Bowie is the best part of it, especially because he's playing Nikola Tesla, which is just such a perfect part for him. Howl's Moving Castle. Another Japanese animation. Howl's Moving Castle centers around the wizard Howl and Sophie, a woman who has been cursed to look like an old woman. It's the only romance out of all these movies, and I just absolutely love it, and I recommend you see it. It's beautifully animated and directed by the same guy who did Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away, and go see it. That's it. Okay, that's it, my rather long-winded top 10. Question of the day: what is your favorite genre, and what are your favorite movies and books in that genre? And I will see all of you around the popsicle stand next Tuesday. You want to see a blooper? I know you all want to see a blooper. Advanced Steampunk